So inside of our Augment 3D lighting lab, I've hung some lighting fixtures. I've used channels 1 through 10 to create a basic light plot. So if you notice here in my Augment 3D workspace, I have channel 1, channel 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I've hung them in different areas and at different heights. The arrangement of which isn't important right now, but as we move on through the class, we'll talk about why I hung them up that way and maybe an organizational system that I might use. So just for this demonstration, I've already hung those lights. Notice my work lights in my space are on, but I'm going to turn those off so I can show you a little bit about focusing and aiming lights. So I'm going to turn off my theater lights here so that we have a nice dark theater. Channel number 3 is a highlight from the front. And notice when I turn it on, he's right on my actor. When I turn on channel 5, which is up here in the corner, he is also right on my actor. When I turn on channel 1, he is also right on my actor. So Augmented is in this file is going to default your lights to be on your actor. However, we may not necessarily want that. Augmented also lets us change the focus of the lighting. So I'm going to turn these guys off again for a second. I'm going to take that guy out. I'm going to take that guy out. I'm going to take that guy out. And I'm going to go back to, let's just start with channel 5 here. Channel 5, when I turn him back on, he's on my actor, but I don't necessarily want him to be. While he is selected, I can go over here to Augmented 3D and click anywhere in the space and hold the click, and the light is going to jump. And I'm still holding the click down. The light is going to jump to where I have clicked in the 3D space. This is my aiming feature. So maybe I want it to be on my actor, but maybe I want it to be right at the edge of his feet, like that. Or maybe I want it to highlight maybe just his torso, right? The problem with that is from that distance, that beam is making a really wide field angle, and it's creating what we call throw, that's splashing on the walls of the rest of my venue. I might not want that. So I can actually change the angle or the degree of this beam angle coming out of the light here, which actually also changes the field angle. Notice down here, we have these different degrees. These are all beam angles, 5 degree, 10 degree, 14, 19, 26, 36, 50, 70, and 90. If I change this guy to a 5 degree, watch what happens. I've put a much smaller lens inside this light, and it makes a much smaller beam angle, which also makes a much smaller field angle, and it makes the overall light on the stage smaller. Now suddenly I can't see the actor because that spotlight is very small. But if I click and hold it, and I change my focus until I find my actor again, there he is, and suddenly I have a really nice tight spotlight just on his head and torso. There's no more throw or splash onto the walls of the venue. I can change the color, and I can get a really nice, dramatic, tight spotlight. Let's say I don't want that. Let's say I want to light a really wide area. I can go to the other end of the spectrum and click 90 degrees. And notice now the beam coming out of this light is really wide. The beam angle, I've changed the lens, the glass lens inside the barrel of the fixture. And suddenly it's a really wide angle here, which creates a really wide field angle, which creates a really wide field of light. And look what also has happened. It's also very dim because that light is no longer concentrated. It's being spread out over a much larger area. So maybe I go with a 70 degree. It gets a little tighter, a little smaller, a little brighter. Nah, let's go with a 50 degree. a little tighter, a little smaller, a little brighter. 36 degree, tighter, smaller, brighter. 26, tighter, smaller, brighter. 19, tighter, smaller, brighter. 14, etc., etc. I'm going to imagine that 14 is about the spotlight. Let's try 10. I really like 10. If I want to change its focus, again, I can go over here to Augmented and click and hold, and it will give me control of that light so that I can change the focus to where it looks exactly like I want it to be. Great. Now let's say I want this light to come in at full. And notice he's right there on my performer as well. And let's say I want to tighten this up a little bit too. So let's drop down to 26 degree. Oh, I had that other guy selected. So let's deselect this guy and make sure this guy's selected. And let's change him to 19 degree. So that's the look I want, but I want to make him look like a shadow, right? So now I've got this nice tight spotlight that's a 14 degree over here. And then this guy, which is a 19 degree, which gives me a much larger field and a different look. Again, with him selected, if I want to change his focus, I click and hold it, and it snaps to that point, and I can move him anywhere in the venue. Notice how the light changes as the distance around the space changes. And let's say I want it to cover the actor's head and stop right at his feet. So I can get that light pointed exactly where I want to. And I can really start to shape the space. Let's zoom in just a little bit and get a very realistic look of how this might look in an actual show application in a virtual way before I've ever hung a light. And I can continue, move the light. Let's go back. Clicked a little too long and I moved the light, right? So I can continue to rotate around here and see what I want to see to make sure my shadows are correct. My modeling is correct the way I want it. My visibility is correct. And then I can go back to my standard #1 view. If I want to see what that looks like with the work lights on, I can turn the work lights on in the space so that I can check everything is going correctly. Or I can yell, "Going dark, everybody! Thank you, going dark!" And I can turn the lights back out so that I have a much more theatrical look. I can also, let's say, if I want a pattern in this guy, a gobo, when he's selected, there's gobos down here for me to select. There are other gobos, but we'll talk about how to change those later. I can also, let's take the gobo out, no gobo. I can also start to change how soft or how hard the focus of that light is. If I want, let's zoom in a little bit on the spotlight. If I want the spotlight to be nice and well-defined and sharp, I can leave this guy in sharp focus. But if I want it to look more just like an ambient light or like moonlight, let's change it to medium focus, and notice how this guy softens around, right? It gets a little looser. So let's go to soft focus here. And notice now how it's like less of a spotlight and it's more of just like a nice gentle blur. We can do this with our fixtures to create what's called sharp or soft focus, depending on the look and the stylization that we want to do with our lights. Now, in a realistic application, we have a lot more gradations between this. We can make it even softer than this. But for this Light Lab application virtually, it's a really good opportunity to understand the difference in the looks between a soft focus and a sharp focus. So let's say I want my other spotlight to be in sharp focus. I'm going to unselect this guy, select this other one, and I'm going to soften him up too. So now I have a much softer, less theatrical, more natural look between those lighting instruments. So that's basic aim and focus. Let's just turn on all of these guys and show you what happens. If I have them all selected and I have them all at full, if I click and hold, they're all going to snap to that point. So anything that's selected is going to snap to my long click and follow my long click. So if you make a mistake and things start to move that aren't supposed to move, it's probably because you have them accidentally selected. I can also highlight all of these at once and click off of them, right? Which is a really quick way of changing those parameters. If I want to turn them all out, I can highlight them all and click out. Great. Fantastic. So that's basic aim and focus of your Light Lab instruments.